So I think I will kick off. Well, welcome everybody and thank you for joining us for our first event of 2021, which is around Tech Vision 2021, the road to recovery. For those of you who don't know who Northcoders are, we're the industry leading software development, training and solutions provider. We've got currently working remotely, but we have hubs in Leeds, Manchester and soon to be Birmingham. We teach people, we upskill people, we reskill people and we build stuff, and we're pretty awesome. We are recording today's session, and do please send any comments or questions in through the Q&A functionality. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Chris, who's our partner on this event from Barclays Eagle Labs. Thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks, Karen, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us all this lunchtime for today's event. I'm Chris Winn, and I'm the Ecosystem Manager for the Barclays Eagle Lab in Leeds. I'm delighted to have collaborated with Karen and Northcoders to bring you today's discussion. I'm also glad to see one of our Leeds members, Peter from Hyper, making up the amazing panel that we've got for you today. For those of you not too familiar with Eagle Labs, very quickly, the Leeds site is one of 26 business incubators situated around the UK. 3 of them are in Yorkshire, and we are a finalist for Incubator of the Year 2020 in the upcoming Yorkshire Financial Awards. The purpose is to provide a space where like-minded startup businesses and entrepreneurs, predominantly in tech, can collaborate, grow and scale up their businesses at pace. So how do we do this? We offer co-working and private office space in state-of-the-art buildings, along with a whole source of value-added benefits, which include mentoring, investor readiness programs, accelerators in specific industries, which include health tech, law tech, games tech, and our latest industry, which is agri-tech, where we've just opened our 26th Eagle Lab, which is an Eagle Lab farm in Lincoln. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. We also have an extensive event schedule with high-profile speakers and much, much more. If you'd want any more information, then please just drop me a message on LinkedIn. It'd be great to hear from you and show you all around our facilities post-lockdown. So I'll now hand over to Stuart Clarke, who's going to get us underway.
Thanks, Chris, and Karen as well. So hello and welcome to an hour of looking back at the dumpster fire that was 2020 and looking forward to the sunlit paradise that hopefully will be 2021. And we've got an incredible panel, and in a second I'll ask them to introduce themselves. We'll be having an honest and open discussion about their learning from 2020 and how we can take some of those more positive things we learned last year into 2021 and beyond, and almost come up with a clear and robust plan of action to move ourselves forward. So lots of stuff we'll be touching on today. Obviously, the impact that COVID has had on all our industries, but particularly the tech sector, the new ways of working, what we found that works, what doesn't, the impact on culture, and just loads and loads of things. So I've got lots of questions to the panelists, but if you've got any yourselves, please put them in the box at the bottom, and I'll try to get them to them all as we go along. We are recording this session, so if you're watching this in 2023, I hope you're enjoying lockdown number 10. We're just in number 3 at the moment. So let's introduce the panelists. I'm going to go with Anna Sutton from the Data Shed first.
There we go, I'm unmuted. I've got unstable Wi-Fi, which just goes to show one of the key problems of 2020/2021 and everyone working from home and homeschooling and everything else. So hi, I'm Anna Sutton. I'm the co-founder of the Data Shed. We are a data company in Leeds, and I can hear myself coming back at myself, which is always delightful. So yeah, we've got a team of, we went into lockdown with a team of 42. We will probably be coming back from lockdown, if we ever come back from lockdown, with a team of 60-ish. So we've grown by nearly 50% in lockdown, which presented a huge number of challenges. So it's going to be really interesting to have a chat and see how all the other people here are dealing with some of the challenges.
That's great. And now we'll go to Pete Denby from Hyper Group.
Hi, yeah, so Peter Denby, I'm a co-founder of Hypergroup. So we use data science and AI to help our clients make unified customer-led decisions. And yeah, similar story to Anna, really, albeit on a smaller scale. We've been trading for getting on a couple of years, but we've also grown during the lockdown period, which has presented some interesting challenges. Onboarding staff in a lockdown is you know, I yeah, really feel for the people who have to be onboarded during a lockdown. So yeah, loads of interesting challenges. Looking forward to talking about it today.
That's great. And Stuart, can we come over to you? So Stuart Bullock from BJSS.
Hi, I'm Stuart Bullock. So I'm the Managing Director of BJSS. We're I guess you'd describe us as a full service technology consultancy, right the way from service design, full out service delivery, managed services, and then all the consultancy services that underpin that. We're still privately owned. We're about 1,500 people there now across 10 cities in the UK, 2 in the US, 1 now in Portugal and 1 in Australia now. So it's been an interesting journey this last year around that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that. And obviously the big thing for us is, like Anna and Peter have already said, is looking after your staff, and we've got a fair few of them, and how we've had to do that. And also the sort of the impact, I guess, that COVID's had on our business, which has been massive. But I think positive stories to come out of that too.
That's great. Thanks, Stuart. And finally, we've got Amul Batra from our host today, Northcoders.
Thanks, Stuart. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name's Amul. I'm the Partnerships Officer at Northcoders, been here pretty much since day one. And Karen's already given you a brief intro to what we do, but essentially we are, I'd like to think we're trying to pioneer the people and technology and skills industries all in one. You know, we develop people via our award-winning tech education programs, and we turn absolute beginners from code into in-demand. Ultimately, through a new program, I've got the mid-level software engineers. We also write software solutions, both that underpin our business, as well as work with external partners to create software solutions for them. And also we can put together teams of people across levels to help kind of solve those slightly more complicated people and software problems that businesses have.
That's great. Right, let's get into the question. I'm going to start with a really, really wide one. So Stuart, I'm coming to you. 2020, how was it for you?
Well, mixed bag. I guess rather embarrassingly, it's been a really good year for BJSS, and put that in context with everything that's going on in the world right now. But I think, you know, we thought there was an existential risk, maybe not on the business, but certainly on our sector, and kind of probably on a lot of jobs. And we went into it trying to do everything we can to safeguard every job we had. Did a lot of financial planning around how long could we run the business at loss and all those type of things, given what could happen. Luckily, none of those scenarios kind of happened, and I think there was an immediate dip and impact on our businesses. I'm sure there was with everyone, as everyone was working out what to do. But pretty much within 6 or 8 weeks, found that demand for technology was strong, and I think, you know, it's quite an intelligent marketplace out there, and people have realised that technology can help underpin their businesses and support them through that. And I think that's probably what supported us. And just demand has been phenomenally strong. And I think the whole human nature lesson is phenomenal, just what people can achieve without you looking over their shoulders. And this whole remote working, the shift to full remote working, I guess we're lucky in our staff are used to that, aren't they? So they're used to looking at a laptop. And if you give them that, and as long as they can access some kind of broadband, that they can get over and work from home. So I guess we'll get to it in a minute, but I think there's been a lot of positive changes for us. I think it's forced us to look at how we operate the business, change some things, and just be open to that.
Yeah,
probably.
That's great. Yeah, and Anna, if we can ask you the same question, how was your 2020 generally?
Stressful, I think, in a word. I think probably everybody on this call would agree with that. Having to make decisions without enough information is really stressful, and trying to work out what was the best thing to do for the team, how to keep them healthy, how to get them set up properly, work remotely. There were just an awful lot of decisions that required a lot of immediacy. So yeah, it was great to have a really strong senior team who've been really supportive throughout, and we've had to figure out an awful lot of challenges, but I think for me, really, we had our first board meeting yesterday where we started to look forward again, as opposed to dealing with immediate challenges and firefighting, really. which was just really nice and a big relief to be starting looking forward then. I think that was a big hallmark of 2020, just literally firefighting all day every day. And while we've been very fortunate, and I agree with Stuart, it was a really good year for us, which is quite embarrassing given it's been such a horror show for so many others. It's been a very difficult year, but we're very fortunate to be coming out the other end of it, still standing really.
Yeah, that's great, thank you. And Amul, similar question to yourself, and I know particularly because you'd only recently moved into the Leeds office, I think, towards the end of 2019. So, how was the impact on Northcoders last year?
So actually, we moved into the Leeds office Feb 19, and we had a clear year of being there. So that was, that was fine. We had a good, I think, at the point whereby the pandemic hit and lockdown happened, actually did 100% placement from our coding bootcamp into Leeds businesses from the Leeds campus. So that year had gone incredibly. We just moved into our flagship Manchester campus literally on the 1st of January 2020. And that's been a bit of a, great, we had a great start to the year, brilliant launch party, but then obviously that's just been pretty underutilized, unfortunately. But in terms of, so, we do two main things, at that point. We had the coding bootcamp, and we were just launching our upskill program, which was to take people from junior level developer to mid-level developer via an apprenticeship program. And so we had a huge task of obviously pivoting what we were really proud of, having an in-person culture, an in-person training business, to do something online. And we were very anti doing things remotely or part-time or any different way, and being able to retain both the culture of what we do in terms of teaching people and having those communities built. And we really surprised ourselves, actually. We had to literally pivot. We had 100 people in flight at the moment the lockdown was announced. We were slightly ahead of the game. Actually, we closed our campuses sort of 3 or 4 days before, because we saw it coming and we felt that we had to do the right thing. It's part of who we are as a culture, is trying to do that right thing at all times. And Sam, our COO at the time, was very keen on making sure that we were getting that message across. We pivoted a little bit sooner than we were forced to. But I think the thing is, we've got brilliant people in the business, and they've switched to online completely. Of the 100 or so that we had in flight, we deferred 20 and kept 80 on. For a little while, we didn't take any new people on because we wanted to see what the world looked like. But the stats, the people getting jobs, all of that has continued slightly, not at the same speed. So we were 96% and got people jobs within 30 days of graduating the coding bootcamp. But we've pretty much, as we got into the autumn, started to look at, I think September we had 17 people placed in that month into software companies, and December just gone was 12, which is a good December for us. Do you know what I mean? The upskill program kind of probably fell back by 2 quarters. But we're working with a dozen companies like Conveyor, Think Money, Foot Asylum, on upskilling their developers. So it's about 50 people on that at the moment. So, we've been able to do what we did in person remotely. And I'd like to think that we haven't lost all aspects of the culture that brought. I mean, there's some that are just going to fall by the wayside. But we've got good people. We trust in them, and I think the outcomes are remarkable, and we're very proud of them. And and obviously there's opportunity now by being happy to do this remotely going forward.
That's great, thank you. And Peter, yourself, and as a relatively young, relatively small business as a startup, how was 2020 for you? A bit of a baptism of fire.
Yeah, definitely challenging, I think, for a number of different reasons, but positive overall in terms of kind of business performance. It's actually gone remarkably well, so we're happy with that. A lot of our whether we're successful or not is some of it's determined by our clients, and we work with a couple of clients who've been super busy during COVID because of what they do as a company. So a grocery retailer, for example, a lot of people buying groceries. Another company sells a lot of stuff that people use at home. So, you know, again, they've been super busy. Then we work with other clients who've been badly affected during COVID. So retailers who've had to shut a lot of their shops for chunks of time. So, you know, that has a detrimental effect on the stuff that we do. But overall, you know, business has gone pretty well. So we're in a similar position to the rest of the guys from that point of view. I think some of the tough things that have happened from a startup's point of view, you know, you have to make decisions all the time, really, really important business critical decisions, and having to do all that remotely, I think, is difficult. I think it's much more effective to be able to discuss some of those things in person, particularly if you know, have differing opinions as well. So I think having to do all that remotely has been a challenge. We've also been growing, so we've recruited a number of people, and the challenge of onboarding and getting people, you know, really ingrained in the business remotely. It's probably tough from their point of view. You know, I'd hate to join a business, I think, during a lockdown period, because you just don't have the opportunity to really get ingrained in the culture. And I think one of the worst things is just not knowing what people are thinking. So, you know, and that's less of a problem when you're face to face with people and you can kind of talk things through. So yeah, I think it's been varied. You know, thankfully we've been successful, but it hasn't been without its challenges.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to pick up on that piece about culture, because, you know, as we all know, in the tech world, it's easier for people and companies to work from home. But as you say, if everybody is dispersed and you bring in on new people, you know, that obviously brings problems about culture. So I know everybody talked about bringing on people this year. So Anna, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts about how you've managed to keep that strong culture that you have at the Data Shed throughout the whole year when people have been dispersed, and particularly when you brought new people on board.
Yeah, I think I have never been more grateful for our previous investment in culture. I think it's always been a word that's had quite a, I don't know, not a concrete meaning, and it was like, oh, your culture's great, but it's always been really hard to understand the value of that. And I think last year we really did see the value of investing in our culture in previous years. And when it's not just monetary, it's time and effort, and making sure that we're consistent in how we approach our values-based culture. So we've got 5 core values at Data Shed, and they run through pretty much everything that we do, and we make sure that they're in one-to-ones. We have our awards, which is where they're all based around the values. So, you know, it's been really strong. It's almost like a bank account that is starting to run down a little bit now, though. And we do all sorts of things around. You know, we've got hoodies, we have meetups, we have some sourdough competitions, we've got sourdough baking, we've got all sorts. Well, we've not done one sourdough so last year, but I think it's going to be really difficult to keep that going and keep that momentum if we keep going through this for any period of time. And well, we've managed to onboard people and kind of bring them into the culture. And we had a great Christmas party, which really helped. And we're probably going to do another social later this year, later this month. The culture's strong and it's great, and it's really underpinned everything that we've done. But I do think without us starting to come face to face and get back into the office on a part-time basis or whatever we decide we're going to do, I think it'll only last us so long unless we figure out how to do more remotely, I think.
Yeah. And Stuart, what are your thoughts on the culture, and particularly, you know, for BJSS opening new offices internationally? Have you managed to sort of take the culture you've developed within Leeds and the rest of the UK over the years and take that to the wider offices and new starters, as well as keeping that existing culture going for existing staff?
Yeah, really hard work. I mean, Anna hit the nail on the head. I think you reap the rewards of the work you've done before, I think, in a time like this. So we have a particular culture, as Anna described, that Data Shed does, and obviously with the scale comes a problem with the scale. So, and we've always tried to simplify that by making the problem as small as we can. So if we open an office somewhere, we encourage that office to develop its own culture around its own location, and then get involved in the ecosystem that it exists. So, you know, in Cardiff, it will feel very different from what it will in Leeds and London, for example. So we tend to operate the business in lots of small small pockets. So we've been able to do that and encourage the leaders in those groups to do things and to invest in the people and just look after people, and then break that down even within that. So we have multiple engagements within a particular city, say. So each of those within your own little team will do things that just to keep the team going. And we invested monetarily into that too, and allowed people to spend money on those. So we then did something that I think is the positive outcome for us. I think we've been able to work like that until now, and now actually we got the benefit of actually doing something centrally to support people. So when you've got so many different locations and you've got so many different heads of regional locations, well, actually, can we kind of share learnings from each other, and can we do something that's a bit more together? So actually, we put a team together, and we did the proper agile thing, which as soon as we went into lockdown, there was a COVID committee team that got together, a social committee that got together, and even as the board of directors and the owners, we met literally every day, those groups, to sort of think about the business and just assess what was going on. We did put a lot of effort and activity around that. So each office had things going on every week, had activities going on a weekly basis, and then we did lots of social events. And on the run up to Christmas, we did something called Festival, and we had activities literally every work day from the start of December through till the 18th of December. We did things. We sent lots of little care packages out, not expensive things, 5 or 10 quid maybe for each one, but just lots of small things. So we kept a beat rate of things coming in. So everybody at home with their families, we sent out some popcorn with some chocolatey bits and some marshmallows, so that everybody could make popcorn and sit down and watch a film together of an evening. Just lots of little things like that. And I think that really helped. And as you said, I think we then took that opportunity at that time because people were a bit more effective. They had a bit more time on their hands because they were working. They weren't commuting, so people were willing and keen to kind of look at, well, how can we get better? And we put a little of investment in ourselves, and how do we work as a business, and what do we do, and how do we do things, and what are our services, and revisit the website and all that type of stuff. So I think we took the chance to invest in the business a bit, and then even how we resource projects. So we typically, people would want a team recosted in a location close to where they are because they're a client and they might be in Leeds, whatever, they might have to work in Leeds. But now all of a sudden, with everyone at home, you can get the right people onto the right projects much easier. So obviously it just unlocked a whole different resourcing model. So for us, you can imagine the moving parts in 1,500 people just on and off projects all the time. We had to create a virtual team from around the UK who were just worrying about where people are on what project. And that'll be really beneficial for us. But there's a benefit to people then. And then naturally people just start to look after one another. And I think that was great. So I think Anna's point is right. You reap the benefits of the culture you've created, and if you allow people the autonomy to look after people and do the right things, they did that. So it's been phenomenal. And as you said, opening in new locations, we opened our Portuguese office a few months before Christmas, and I guess this remote working has allowed us to build that office quicker. Otherwise, we'd have probably had to find work in Lisbon for people working and employed in Lisbon. Instead, we can hire people in Lisbon, and they can work on projects in Scotland. It doesn't really matter. So it's allowed us to grow internationally. Opportunistically that we wouldn't have had without that. And we've just registered our Melbourne office, and our first member of staff has been announced today. So it's allowing us to do something that we probably couldn't have done very easily before, and people can get engaged and involved in it more. So yeah, I think it's taken a lot of efforts, and I'm very lucky. I've got a lot of very good people to help me. I think probably some of the stresses and pressures that Peter and Anna, you guys feel, I'm lucky because I have a team of people around me. Every time I look at a problem, I might have 6 or 8 other people who are better equipped than I to kind of tackle a problem. And that's probably what I get with scale, I suppose.
And I think I'm getting a bit of feedback, so I'll try to mute as much as I can. But Amul, just on that point that Stuart made there about remote learning and keeping that culture going, not just in Northcoders as a team, but also have you found out with clients, and there's how do you keep that sort of communication going on a much more remote basis?
I think in some respects it's easier so actually let's talk about students first, and then I'll come on to clients. So you're obviously always going to have people that don't have the technology or don't have desk space at home, or have kids in the background, especially with this new lockdown and that first lockdown especially, that make it harder. And I saw a post from Anna earlier this week about how like almost impossible that is, whether you're working or learning or whatever. So that challenge we're hoping is going to be a short challenge, but obviously we've got to hope that alongside everyone being safe. I think Anna wants to say something quickly. Go for it, Anna. I know, you're just agreeing.
I'm just saying, fingers crossed it's going to be a short challenge, because otherwise I'm going to go nuts.
Yeah, so that's all there, and so it exists. But I think the flip side of that is they are the people that we've taught to code, or we've upskilled through the upskill program, are doing so remotely. So when they onboard with those businesses, they've already got into those habits of being remote software developers. And, you know, all of the pairing that's done on the course, all the team projects that are done remotely. So they're almost one step ahead of the game. Inadvertently, it's not something that we ever planned like that, but actually when you look at it, when they're being hired and they're doing those remote interviews and those remote tech tests or whatever, they're used to it. You know, it's all they know, especially for the people that started coding with us in 2020. You know, they might have started an in-person course, but they all finished remotely, and all of the new ones. So that's been an accidental positive, but it shows resilience, and it shows familiarity of being in this remote world. Just to chuck an anecdote onto that, I have one of my son's classmates' dads is a software developer. He's a French guy, but he works for a UN agency. So he's employed, lives in Manchester, employed by a UN agency in New York. And for him, he was telling me, the kids both play football together. He was telling me that in France, people aren't taking on junior developers because they don't want, they're a bit worried about the fact that people won't have this remote experience there. So they're only looking for mids and seniors that might have remote experience, because in France, that's all they really believe in, that you can't just be a remote developer because you're a good developer. And and ultimately his agency might end up hiring from us. And I'm saying, well, actually, it's the reverse over here, because we're instilling those skills in those people because of the new way of working, not despite it, if that makes sense. So, you know, we might have a Northcoder working for a New York-based company soon, which would be remarkable, I think. And it you know, echoes what Stuart was saying. From the client meeting perspective, I think that, you know, the thing that we lose, and the thing that I loved doing with Northcoders, was taking people into the campuses, showing them what we do, showing some lectures going on, introducing them to students at the end of the boot camp, or people at different, and, you know, and watching those eyes grow wider at, like, hang on a minute, I really didn't believe that you could replicate and in fact improve on what universities do in such a positive way when they talk to those people on program, right? So I miss that heartbeat of the campus, and I miss showing that off to clients. But again, on the flip side, we can get meetings in the diary with more people a lot quicker, and they can be shorter and sharper. And yes, I end the day going, hang on, I've not even had a chance to go for a loo break, and I'm sure everyone can empathize with that feeling. But, you know, we can get those meetings done quicker, and we can get people on program, we can get people into jobs quicker. So it is swings and roundabouts, and I think that you've got to, you know, remain as positive and work with what you've got, and the people that are doing well through this have kind of been able to pick up those mindsets and the opportunities, as Stuart said, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I sometimes think Zoom meetings should be 50 minutes to give people that chance to nip to the loo, grab a sandwich or a coffee. And I'm picking up on those points about the whole new business cycle. And I've heard lots of people say that, you know, the actual cycle is shortened dramatically because you're not trying to coordinate physical meetings and diaries. And Pete, coming on to you, and, you know, how's your sort of new business growth been this year? You know, without being able to go into people's offices and work closely with clients, is it, you know, what's worked for you and what perhaps hasn't quite worked?
Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest bits, to be honest, in terms of new business growth, because a lot of it, when people are making buying decisions, there's a lot of risk associated with them. So people want to be as comfortable as possible before they decide whether they're going to buy stuff from you. And that comfort often comes from face-to-face meetings, often a number of face-to-face meetings where you can really, the person buying the thing can start to assess whether you really understand their business, their problems, whether you can get on with them as people. So I think for someone buying services or products, that's probably quite challenging. And the whole networking piece has obviously changed dramatically in terms of building your networks and identifying opportunities to grow. I think that's networking remotely. I'm just not sure it works particularly well. Needs to be face to face. So I think that's difficult. I think where we found we've had a lot of success has been with existing clients. So and I think you get different types of clients who do things for different reasons. So if you're an incumbent agency or business working with a client, I think if you're doing a good job, then the chances are you'll do more work for that client, because the risk of going elsewhere just gets greater and greater. So if you can do a great job, you can work really hard, you've built up a decent relationship with clients, then you'll end up doing more. And we've certainly found that with the clients that we work with. Starting working with new clients, I think, is the more challenging bit. And I think maybe where that works is where and looking at the types of businesses out there and those clients who look at this situation as a big opportunity actually to do something different, then they'll probably look to other agencies that they might want to work with. But I think the majority of businesses are risk averse and want to just consolidate with the existing agencies. So bit of a mixed picture. We've definitely found that ourselves. Clients that we already worked with, we've done a lot more work with. Finding new clients to work with, definitely more challenging.
And Anna, if I can ask the same question you mentioned. You had great growth, so bringing on clients, acquiring them. So I think I cut out there. I don't know how much you.
Start again for me, please. Otherwise, I'm going to answer a random question.
Yeah. Just again, just going on the back of what Pete was saying about, and you mentioned earlier you had good growth at the data shed in 2020. So bringing on clients, what's been the experience of acquiring and bringing them on board, a whole new business process and onboarding during a remote process?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting what Pete said around the fact that a lot of his work has come from his current client base. In our experience, a lot of our new business leads have either come from people we've worked for in the past, or they've come from people in our network. A couple of leads have come from actual personal friends who know us and trust us. So again, this is kind of where investing in building a network in previous years has really come into its own. So people have come to us with problems that have come up in lockdown, and rather than kind of going out and throwing the net maybe a bit wider than they would have done in other years, they've kind of come to people that they've come to us because they know us and they know and trust us. So while we have brought on completely new clients, there's been a link to either a relationship or a friendship that we have. We've seen a big dip in kind of new opportunities coming from out of the blue, but again, referrals have come into play massively in the last 12 months. So every new client has either come from a relationship in the past or a referral, which has been absolutely brilliant from our perspective, because it's kept the work coming in.
And how have you managed the actual process of that, bringing companies on board, new clients?
It's been absolutely well. Two of those clients are overseas, so one of them's two of them are in Switzerland. So that's meant that we can actually onboard and work with them in a much easier way than it might have been in other years. So actually, in that respect, this has really worked out very well for us. Although actually the contract negotiations have been more complicated because it's obviously international, which is fun. We've done remote workshops, which we were quite nervous about. We've done a complete consulting piece for a client over in Hull, and normally we would do all of those workshops in person, but what we've been able to do them remotely and then record them has meant that we've actually got much better better outcomes than we were actually anticipating, I think is probably the best way to say it. It's gone really well, and being able to deliver an entire project with workshops remotely has worked really well. So yeah, it's meant a lot less travel, which is great for the team. We've got a client in Bristol, which is obviously challenging to get to from Leeds, and I'm not going to bang on about the rail network any more than is necessary. But yeah, it's really opened new horizons for us as a Leeds business. A lot of our clients have been local, and it's really kind of opened horizons to work with people further afield, which is absolutely brilliant.
That's great. And Stuart, can I put the same question to you about, you know, the remote onboarding of clients, and has it made things easier? And as Anna said, internationally, it certainly seems to have made things easier. But as Pete mentioned, they're missing that sort of face-to-face building that relationship.
Yeah, I would repeat what everybody else said. I think it's more difficult. We have one new work in that period, and I guess we have a slightly bigger machine to kind of go out and do that. But you know, been going 28 years. I think what Anna said about where work comes from, most of our work comes from that anyway. It comes from existing clients. It comes from relationships. It comes from, you know, doing a good job. So I can't stress how important that is anyway on running a business. So it's kind of, you know, somebody you did work for before maybe goes to another business and they contact you. So actually, the traditional kind of sales cycle of a salesman picking up the phone and calling someone, it's you know, that's hard won yards, that is. And I think work does come from that angle, of course, but a lot of work does come from relationships and reputation, and the hard work that people do in touch with their network. So it's always that valuable. And I think we have won work and some significant work over the period. Didn't for a bit. It definitely got a bit quiet in sort of March, April, and probably May, I would guess. It's hard to think back to when it was. It was all a bit of a blur, but certainly towards the tail end of the work, yeah, we have done some work. And onboarding new clients, it's been fine. I think because everyone is doing the remote thing, and somebody mentioned it in the Q&A thing about the remote working thing, because everyone's remote working, people cut everyone a lot more slack. So it's a bit easier. I suspect the challenge will become when we all start to get back to work, if ever that happens. and then there's a midpoint, and there's a bunch of people working remotely, and a bunch of people not, and people not wanting to go back to work, and some wanted them to go back to work. I suspect that's when it's going to become a bit more challenging. The onboarding new clients.
Just on that, I was going to ask a question on that, and Paul in the audience has asked us sort of that similar question about, you know, how do you plan for that? You'll have loads of people who are desperate to get back into the office, and I would guess lots of people in who just starting the careers want to be back in the office. But then you'll have lots of people who actually quite like being at home, and you know, taking the dog for a walk in the morning, and you know. Not having to go to Greg's or Panning's, that mix of sort of demands from employees. And Amul, you know, begin to hear your thoughts on that.
Sorry, just finding the mute button or the unmute button. So I think you're right. It's going to be different demographics wanting different things. And in terms of learners, it's finding solutions for those people who can't actually learn at home. I think it's always going to be a bit of a mix of needing some kind of office space, some kind of central hub, some kind of place for even those that love working at home to be able to see those people face to face, look genuinely in the eyes as opposed to a computer screen, and kind of have that importance of kind of being in the same place together. It's going to be a hybrid. I think everyone sort of talks about that anyway. It's going to, you know, but I think the thing that's really tough to figure out is when that's going to happen. And you know, I for one was certain that we were going to end 2020 on vaccines here. You know, we've got it under control. You know, always, I'm not scientific at all, but always kind of being aware there might be a new variant. But for it to hit us so hard as it's done, and for us to be further behind than we possibly were in March, you know, it is tough. So we don't know when it's going to happen. Therefore, to have a silver bullet answer about how we're going to deal with that, I think everyone's got to prepare for remote, hope for some kind of hybrid option sooner rather than later to help people out of those challenges. You know, those people who live at home without a garden, who probably are going to be suffering more than those who have outside space and family or cohabit with friends or whatever. you know, it's going to be different for every single person. And it is a challenge for every business, for every training provider to go, well, how is this going to work for all of the people? Whereas before there was that homogeneity of people being able to go into those central places. I think a lot of that's still to be defined, you know, but I think, again, if you've got a good attitude to solving these problems, you might have a bit more time to solve problems like skill strategy or where you're going to be located or whatever. Because of this, then, you know, you have to take those opportunities to kind of fix that, as, you know, as Stuart sort of said, as I did with the start of you know, where we were last March.
That's great. And Anna, I know in the summer you wrote about bringing the teams back into the office in sort of different groups, and, you know, what are your thoughts on, at some point when we do come back in the office, what are the thoughts on the mix of remote to office working?
Well, I'm for one chomping at the bit to get back in the office. I can't stand working from home, but that's obviously personal preference. I mean, we've spoken a lot about this, as I'm sure everybody else has, around how we can support those who are really relishing working from home, and I think more than anything, not missing the commute at all. We've got a few people who have, you know, fairly long commutes into the office. We are, however, really missing the ideation, whiteboarding, face-to-face kind of inspiration sessions that happen when we're all together. And I think one of the conclusions I'm coming to is that it's up to us to really make the office an attractive place to be for people to actually want to come in. We are going to be looking at how the teams self-manage themselves. So we will ask for people to be in the office part-time, and make sure that people come in and have those sessions face-to-face, because we think they're important from a learning and from a communication perspective. But actually they're all grown-ups and they can work it out themselves. So what we're going to do is flow that down into the different teams to allow them to make their own decisions about which days they want to be in the offices and which days they want to work from home. I think it's just about supporting the various different people. I've never been more aware about how different people's circumstances are impacting the way they want to work. And the sooner we can get the office open for those who really want to be back in the office, like me, the better. But obviously it's got to be safe.
That's right. And thanks for that. And I think you're right. And the conversations I had with many firms over the last few months, and again, it's getting people back in the office who really want to be for certain reasons. And one of the things I think we've all talked about, and it's been a common thing that many people have talked about this year, is the mental health aspects of working from home, particularly if you live on your own, or, you know, you're a relatively new graduate and there's 6 or 7 of you in a space in a shared house, and you don't have that space to yourself. And I think it's really important we have those sort of plans for helping out our staff. And Richard and the audience has asked a question about how the panel approached and managed mental health 2021, considering that we're in this for longer than anticipated. So Pete, I'm going to chuck that one over to you. Have you and your team been over the last 12 months, and how are you going to get through the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's a tricky one again. We've got a combination of people really working for us. So 4 of us who founded the business, who have, you know, obviously been in business a while, used to remote working to a certain degree, and, you know, perhaps a little bit easier for us. But then the rest of the team tend to be younger people, earlier in their career, typically living in the city centre, and desperately want to work out in the office. They don't want to work at home. They haven't necessarily got the space. They want the stimulation of talking to other people. They probably miss the you know, the other benefits of living in a city as well. And then we've got an added complexity on top of that, in that 3 of our team come from different countries. So we've got someone from Spain, someone from Lithuania, someone from Bulgaria. You know, and I can't imagine what it's like being away from your family, you know, that far away from your family, really, during a global pandemic. I imagine that's a pretty grim situation to be in. But because we are small, we're only 11 people, we've been able to, I think, concentrate on everybody as individuals, perhaps more difficult if you're at more of an industrial scale. So we've been able to talk to people as individuals and try to understand where they're at and anything that they're struggling with and adapt to that. For example, our guys whose families are abroad during the first lockdown, they went and lived back with their families for a number of weeks so that they could spend time with them. And because remote working is, you can remote work, they're developers and data scientists, so they're able to work from home, and that was okay. But so we tried to be flexible. I think the big thing with this is, to Anna's point, really, is it's very nuanced. I think it depends on the individual. I think the danger is if you read on social media, it's a very black and white world. It's either brilliant or rubbish. It's either this or that. But I don't think the world's like that, actually. I think it's different for different people, depending on your personality, depending if you're more kind of introvert or extrovert, depending on, whether you've got a family, depending on, whether you've got space at home or you live in a small flat. So I think the important thing over the coming months, because, I'm not quite sure when this is going to end, is to adapt to individuals and make sure that individuals are okay, and we're doing what we can to support people depending on their specific set of circumstances.
Obviously, out of the panelists, I think you have the by far the most employees.
Stuart, I think.
I think you're asking me about how we tackle the mental health thing, given our scale.
Within BJSS group. What are your thoughts and plans for looking after?
I'm trying to mute you, Stuart. Oh, he's gone. God, technology here. It's very apt for today's session. I think, he's back. Have you managed to reconnect, Stuart?
I'm back. So that's the perils of having kids home working. So I've just texted the whole household and off everything. So hopefully it'll be better from now on. Yes, Stuart, I'm just your thoughts on managing a larger team and how people have been over the last year and how you're going to help them with their mental health aspects this year.
I think what Peter said about even a company your size versus ours, I think the same rules apply. And I think if just because you get bigger, you can't look after people's mental health as well as you could when you're 10 or 11 people, I think that will be wrong for me. So we focus heavily on that. So we do just as much, and there's as much comes with every individual as the BJSS as there will be in a smaller organisation. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of work went on. We pushed that down to a local level, but also try to do things centrally to kind of share and help in that too. And then given the scale, there's a lot of people that have got some experience in that are able to bring that to bear. So a lot of well-being type lunch and learns and calls and things about people with experience in that, or people just sharing the difficulties they have. But also to Peter's point, and Anna's just being flexible with people and making them realise this isn't about making people work 8 hours a day. It's about having a long-term relationship between a member of staff and a company and their clients, and so allowing them to do what they can, and if they need to shift things around because homeschooling and all the problems that Anna shared on your tweet, I think we'll be as absolutely flexible as we can to allow people to do that. And I think we're able to do that because as a consultancy, you're kind of limited by your client base, but everyone's thinking that way too. So everyone's relaxed about it, and everyone will do everything they can to make everyone's working experience and home life experience manageable. So I think just being a responsible employer and doing that, making sure everyone's aware that it's okay. I think so. A lot of effort gone into that, and a lot of people sharing and helping each other out. So it's amazing the amount of comms and the amount of conversations going on, and stuff I've learned that our people can do that I didn't know the skills that they had. I think so. Without even to get to some kind of clever formal way of managing well-being, it's all been all helping each other, and just as an employer being as absolutely flexible as you can. And I think to Amul's point, I think we run a graduate and undergraduate and cross-training academy based out of our Leeds office, and 40 people went through that. So the August-September timeframe, and it was all remote. You say, I think it's amazing. People are used to that, and it's okay. And that used to be all in a room and all meeting each other and having drinks after work. And okay, you can't do some of that social bit, but it's amazing what you can achieve. And we ran a very successful academy, and we're going to do one again in March, and we'll do 2 or maybe even 3 a year now. And if it's remote, it's remote. It's it's just things are just different now.
I'm conscious of time now, so we've got sort of 5 minutes or so left before Karen and Chris sort of finish up. But I'd just like to go around quickly. We've talked a lot about some of the issues that we've had over last year, and certainly a lot of the positive sides. But what I'd like to do, quick fire round, just to say, what did you do differently last year that you hadn't done before, and you're going to take forward over the next, forever. So Amul, I'm going to come to you first.
I think there was a forced reset, and thinking about what we can do and how we can do things better. We're on, as I think everyone's mentioned, that what you put in the bank beforehand kind of helps you going forward. But we had a forced reset. We were going at a gazillion miles an hour. We're graduating people every 3 weeks in Manchester, and then also every 3 weeks in Leeds, and we kind of almost put ourselves under too much pressure. So that forced reset forced us to go, hang on a minute, let's think about this more logically. How can we do more by doing less, almost? So we're kind of every 7 weeks with the boot camp, and that might change. That slightly forced because of COVID, but it allowed us to grow other things. And so I know this is quick fire, but to the point whereby you also look at really, really key aspects of your business, like retention, like listening to your teams and making sure you're doing better for them, and actually looking for the opportunities in that. And we launched something quite ambitious with solutions, and giving our developers, our teachers, those chances to actually develop and be better teachers and be better people and be better developers as part of it. That's something that came out of this. So I think to do a little bit more navel gazing, but to act quicker on ways of fixing that, I guess, is the succinct way I've got to put in it, if that makes any sense.
No, that's great. Thank you. So Pete, what was the gift of 2020 to you?
So I think something that I'm a big believer in is giving people the opportunity to concentrate on particular types of work. I think it's definitely important to technical people, developers, data scientists alike, but I think also people coming up with business strategy and all that kind of stuff. So this kind of concept of deep work, I think there's a phrase that Cal Newport came up with in the title of his book, but giving people the space to really, really concentrate on getting stuff done. So I think one of the benefits of working from home is that people can do that deep work without the distractions of being in the office. I think it's probably made people realize that they can get a lot of productivity in their day, albeit that needs to be balanced with more in-person interaction. So when we are back to something like normal, I think having that balance of office working and at home working, I think people will be a lot more open, and certainly we're a lot more open and aware of the need to have that balance so you get the most out of the workforce in the business.
That's great, and I'd certainly recommend Cal Newport's book as well, Pete. Really interesting. So Stuart, what have you taken from 2020 that perhaps you didn't do before with BJSS that you're going to keep within the business?
Yeah, it's like very interesting what you said, Amul. I think getting back to basics. I think you do run a business, and especially in the tech industry, you get really embroiled in the pace of things, and there's work coming in, and you have to hire some people and get some stuff out the door, and it just carries on, and you get embroiled in it. And I think certainly with our scale, I think we've just been able to get back to basics, back to brass tacks. Okay, what really matters? Let's look at the business really simply. And do we need to do all that travel? And do we really need to do that? Do we need to behave that way? Do we need to go over there? And just get back to basics and look at every pound, shilling, and pence. I mean, literally, I've been all over our finances of our business the last more than I care to imagine the last 9 months. But I think just treating the business and people, just getting back to basics and treating the people with respect, and just be able to be a bit more flexible about everything. And I think that's going to stand us in good stead. I think it'll stand us in good stead both financially and just with people. I think it's just really basic. And it's the perfect excuse to do that. And nobody's looking at you going, "Oh, are you trying to do this to save some money?" No, we're not. We just let's look at it from a really basic point of view. Let's not do the things that we don't need to do.
That's great. And Anna, your thoughts on things you did differently in 2020 that you're going to take forward?
I think the main thing that we're moving forward with, we've created a new role at the Data Shed, which is, it's internally it's called Head of Shedder Engagement. I think we might give her a different job title so she looks slightly more normal on the outside world. But Steph, who is currently our PA, has been absolutely super glue for the shed in the last 12 months. And she's played a really important role in terms of keeping the culture alive and keeping the teams moving. She's one of our mental health first aiders, and she's really passionate about that side of the business. So I think moving forward, it's about looking at how we continue to invest in that culture, but also look at how we engage with every single shedder and make that, from onboarding all the way through to leaving the shed and moving on, how do we make sure that that experience is right for them? So the learning and development, the office experience, the working from home experience, and how do we make sure that they're fully engaged all the way through? And obviously last year it wasn't just about COVID and coronavirus. There were huge shifts in the world of diversity and inclusion, so she'll be focusing on that side of things as well, and how we kind of contribute to that conversation as well as a business. So she's got a big job and we'll be supporting her through it, but I think that is the big thing for me. We're really investing more in our culture moving forward.
No, that's great. Thanks, Anna. And thanks to all the panel for sharing some of the difficulties last year, but also some of the positive things that have come up and that we can all take forward over, keeping this year, next year and going forward. So I'm going to pass you back to Karen from Northcoders and Chris from Barclays Eagle Labs. And apologies again for my breaking up now and again, and say perils of having kids at home.
No, thank you, Stuart. That was great, and it was really great to catch up with everybody. It's sad that we've not actually seen each other physically for a long time, but at least we can keep doing this via Zoom. So thanks again to Chris at Barclays Eagle Labs to partnering with us on this event. Hopefully be the first of many, and 2021 will definitely be a little bit more positive than 2020. So thank you, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Love it. Great. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Stuart.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.